Hey everyone, and welcome to this Monday episode of The Nonprofits. This week, in an article by Maria Manzos, published on November 13th, 2025 by Deseret News, discussed the meeting between Pope Leo XIV and several prominent Hollywood figures that took place on the Saturday after the article's publication. It was kind of a surprising assembly. The group included not outspokenly religious names, and even some who have been critical of organized religion in their work or in the press, such as Cate Blanchett, Chris Pine, Adam Scott, Viggo Mortensen, Alison Brie, and Dave Franco, as well as directors like Spike Lee, George Miller, Giuseppe Tornatore, and Gus Van Sant. Author and Vatican expert Chris White explains that the Vatican doesn't target specifically outspoken religious figures for the purpose of remaining engaged with secular culture. University of Utah professor of history and religious studies, Colleen McDaniel, says that the Pope's intentions are to, quote, build a positive relationship rather than a controlling one with Hollywood, because religion can't dictate what comes out of Hollywood anymore. Now, before we get started here, I do want to take a moment because a couple of weeks ago was Trust But Verify's first appearance on the Nonprofits, and we didn't take a moment to welcome and introduce him. And today we also have joining us for the first time ever, Common Sense Cult. So I do want to take a chance to welcome both of you to the Nonprofits. We're really happy to have you. Do you guys want to take a second to talk sort of about where else you can be found online and what you do?
All right. Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Trust But Verify, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Eli. You can find me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and really easy, Trust But Verify 2024.
Awesome. Yeah. Common Sense, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Common Sense Cult, and you can find me also on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I also have a Spanish TikTok, El Culto de Sentido Común. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to follow that one because we were just talking about speaking Spanish right before the show. That sounds fun. Thank you both for being here. I'm really excited.
Great to be here.
Awesome. Now, my first thought before I read all the way through the article was, what is the reason the Pope is meeting with Hollywood figures, and why is it propaganda? So I guess my first question to kick this off for both of you is, how much do we think this is motivated by this desire to generate propaganda, and how much do we think it's something else, and what else do you think that is? Common Sense Cult, we'll start with you.
I 100% think it is coercion. I don't necessarily know about propaganda, but it does seem like the Vatican and the Christian church in general is grasping at straws as they see a move towards more secularism. And I feel like this is a way to still remain relevant and cool, but also trying to bring Catholicism and Christianity back into the circle and coerce people into maybe offering more religious content. I think it's honestly evangelism in the way that you would invite a friend to coffee and start talking about Jesus and try to subtly, get them to find Jesus. I think it's pure coercion. And I honestly thought it was a bit funny to see the Pope kind of grasping at straws there. And I mean, I would go. If I was one of the actors invited, I think it'd be really cool, but it's honestly a manipulation tactic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree. And it's not an exclusive group. Whoopi Goldberg and Chris Rock have met with popes before. Robert De Niro met with the same pope earlier last month. So, I agree. It is kind of interesting to see him sort of casting such a wide net, so to speak. Trust, did you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, it's propaganda. I mean, let's look at the list of stars that went. We got Cate Blanchett, we got Viggo Mortensen, Alison Brie, we got Spike Lee, and Gus Van Sant. So we got filmmakers, we got actors, and it's not like they invited Kevin Sorbo and Scott Baio. I mean, they went after some pretty high profile people. And while they may not be completely top of the list, A-list people, but still, these are pretty popular people that everybody knows. So definitely a propaganda push. They're trying to move the needle as far as Christianity and Catholicism are concerned, and it's obvious.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one way to look at it. That was my first thought. There were some people, like I mentioned, Colleen McDaniel is a professor of history and religious studies at the University of Utah. And she says, I have a quote from here in my notes. She says, they're not thinking, let's go backwards, but rather asking, where do people get their values? How do they think about big issues? And the place they do that is through Hollywood. And I want to talk a little like in a different vein about that quote later. But the people that the article cites as like experts on the Vatican seem to think that this is more of a genuine, like, hey, like, culture is getting more secular, like let's get with the times, or do you like it, but it's really easy to look at it as a sort of like they're playing a political game, so to speak, because I've heard people say this whole thing about like Zionist organizations flying content creators out or like meeting with actors or doing things like this to try to like influence them to make their content more Zionist friendly. So like with that context, like, do we think that there are some in the Vatican that think this is just playing a political game where like they see too much secular or otherwise non-Christian influence in Hollywood and they're just like trying to build more rapport with people? Because like Viggo Mortensen is an outspoken atheist, or at least not outspoken, but like noted publicly as an atheist. These other people have been critical of religion. And like you said, Trust, they didn't fly out Kevin Sorbo or like Mark Wahlberg or I don't know, Guillermo del Toro probably. He has a lot of religious imagery in his movies, but
Mel
like
Gibson, yeah.
Yeah, is it because those guys are already drinking the Kool-Aid and they're trying to like, you think so?
Yeah, I think
Definitely,
they're trying
of
to,
course.
they're trying to soften it up a little bit. Definitely.
Yeah.
And and then to your thing, what was interesting to me also was that there was that backlash with that movie Conclave, which by the way, now I want to see it. I saw that and I'm like, I'm not too interested in it. But now that I got to be honest, now that Catholics are backlashing against it, I'm like, that makes me want to see it. So
Yeah,
I might
maybe
actually
I'll
have
check
to
it
go. Yeah, I have to go check it out now. Yeah, because but there was the backlash, and so let's not let's keep this real. Catholics still are an extremely, it's still the largest religion in the world, very, very sizable religion. And so they still have a lot of influence. So they really have to speak to their congregation, and anything they can do to kind of soften things up a little, put a little bit of influence in there it definitely is a political move. Without a doubt, they're trying to influence things in Hollywood. No doubt.
For sure. Colt, it sounded like you were starting to say something as well.
Yeah, I didn't think about the conclave. Is that what it's called? I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of the movie that just came out on Friday, The Carpenter's Son, which is a horror movie about Jesus. And I'm actually fascinated about it. But there's a massive backlash about that movie. And that just goes to show all the rhetoric in the Christian realm, not just Catholicism, but that Hollywood is demonic. Hollywood is full of evil spirits, and everything that comes out of Hollywood is influencing society for the worse. And so for me, it makes logical sense that, of course, this is a strategic move from the Pope to kind of soften what they're pushing out there, to stop pushing out movies that are either critical or like horror movies about Jesus, to kind of take things back to how they were several decades ago when the church had more influence in what was coming out. So I do think they're directly responding to culture kind of moving away from the church and trying to kind of play up that, yeah, Hollywood is demonic, so let's calm it down.
Yeah. Yeah, they're being very adamant. They're like, no, he's not trying to control what comes out of Hollywood. Like, did anybody accuse you of that? You're bringing it up a lot.
Yeah. Have you guys heard that conspiracy theory that basically says that actors are contractually prohibited from discussing their faith? Have either of you guys heard that?
No, I haven't.
I get
I've
that
heard
on
that
my
they sell their
lives.
souls, but not that.
I've heard that a lot too, but I get that on my lives from time to time. Somebody will walk in and say, "Yeah, I know God's real because they purposely force actors not to discuss their faith, and it's in the contract." So it's just this really, really interesting conspiracy theory. And I'm going to tell you right now, this article torpedoes that conspiracy right out of the water. I mean, if the Vatican is handing out awards to actors for being openly Christian, and the idea that Hollywood is contractually gagged is just nonsense. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then, the article lists actors who have publicly discussed their faith for years, and not to mention the ones who are, secular or non-faith that are going to these events and meeting with the Pope. I mean, it just makes the whole censorship complaint fall apart. So it's a total self-serving myth.
Yeah, I can imagine maybe some agencies, like some talent agencies might might discourage their talent from discussing their faith if the talent agency's faith, or is like oriented towards one faith. But I've never heard it. Yeah, like that's such a crazy thing that I haven't heard much of before. I did have another thing. I mentioned this quote from Colleen McDaniel a little bit ago, and I'll go. I'll reiterate the part that I find very interesting. Is that she says they're asking, where do people get their values? What do they think about the big issues? So the reason I find that interesting is because we're talking about a group of people who presumably believe that morality is determined objectively by God's will, and that moral values derived from elsewhere are actually just like subjective misinterpretations of God's perfect divine will written on our hearts. So like this is she's not a Vatican spokesperson, just like a religious studies professor, but speaking about the Vatican, saying they're asking where people are getting their values, as if it's not presupposed by them that it's God. Am I the only, like, did that stick out to either of you, or am I misinterpreting that? Do either of you think?
It does seem a little bit hypocritical, but what I think they perhaps mean by that is where they get values that contradict the church, because they blame Hollywood for all of the negative aspects of society. Like, I mean, in terms views of the church, like abortion and homosexuality are against God's perfect design. And where do those values come from? So I think they're not values in the sense of moral values, but incorrect values, if you would.
Yeah, and especially since now we're seeing like a significant uptick in movies from like protected classes, like, transgender and intersex and things of that sort. We're seeing movies and productions from these historically marginalized voices. And so isn't it interesting that we've seen like an increase in that, and then suddenly the church just comes in with this freaking cape and it's like, okay, where do you get your values from? I mean, it's an obvious, to me, it's a dig at these movies that are coming out that are giving us alternative voices. It's, it's wild to me that this is the direction they're going, and the timing that they come out with. And also it's to me, it's like the church is talking out of both sides of its mouth. It's telling us that they accept homosexuality and transgenderism and things of that sort, but then they're saying subtle things like this, to kind of send the message. Okay, yeah, even though we welcome you into the church, it's still something we don't approve of.
Yeah, it's a ploy to bring people in and then only to tell them later, oh, hey, you have to change.
Exactly.
It's just manipulation, like I said.
It's manipulation. Exactly.
Wow, that kind of illuminated it for me. Thank you both, because that sort of shifts my perspective. Because at first I was like, they're making a concession here, and they're saying like, okay, like obviously we can't convince everybody that morality is objective, so it's like, all right, let's go along now, let's play along. But no, that's not what it is. They're still just being shitty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Excellent. Did either of you have any final thoughts? Anything you wanted to add? We technically still have a good 8 minutes here.
Well, I would say that I'm going to be watching this list of people that are meeting with the Pope, because it's looking like if anything goes south, if some of these people start being outspoken and start aligning closer with the church, this is looking like a ready-made boycott list, a boycott spreadsheet. I mean, if someone wants to avoid faith-driven messaging and entertainment, they're just saving me a lot of time, they're just making this list for me. I'm good with that. Hey, if Spike Lee wants to be boycotted and, Spike Lee starts coming out of pocket and start doing, okay, I guess I'm going to have to boycott Spike Lee. I got no qualms about that. So I'm actually kind of glad that an article like this streamlined it so efficiently for me. So I'm happy with that.
You're gonna set up Google notifications for Viggo Mortensen Christian Spike Lee.
I'm watching you.
But it's become kind of like the in thing to do to become Christian now. With I'm blanking on their names right now, but what is it? Kate Von D and. Major names are becoming Christian and are doing that whole 180, and that's kind of the it thing to do for some people. And I mean, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if people that have been invited to the Vatican later decide, hey, yeah, I'm Christian, because it is happening.
Yeah, that would be. Was it Russell Brand? Was the other one that he recently became?
Yeah, Russell Brand.
Totally blanked on his name, but yes, that one.
Yeah, I couldn't. It was like a good few seconds after. I was like, that. I think he was another one. I couldn't remember if he was a Christian and became an atheist or what.
I don't know if he's full on Christian, but he's definitely more spiritual. Definitely a right wing red pill.
Ooh, outstanding.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think I don't want to stretch this conversation out more than it has. I think we've had a lot of good points. You two did shift my perspective on this a little. I normally think that I like Pope Leo, and definitely have had a favorite, but I just haven't read about anything bad that he's done. So maybe he's just doing it and I've missed it. But this is sort of kind of moving the needle a little bit in the opposite direction for me. Thank you both for joining me. Thank you all for watching. And if you want more nonprofits, click on one of the links below.